Hello, and welcome to my YouTube channel. If you are someone that's been thinking of buying the Polar Ignite 3 and wondered what its battery life is like, then you have come to the right place. If you are new to my videos, I like to keep it short and to the point, so that you get the answers you want right away. I will also show you how I test and rate a device as well, which will be of some importance, especially if you are looking to purchase the device. With that said, let's take a look at the final test results. And here it is. I do 2 types of tests for battery life, and I rate each test out of 5. As you can see, the device did really well in one test, but didn't do too well in the other. But then again, the Polar Ignite 3 is heavily specialized in providing the best fitness tracking, which is why GPS battery consumption is very good. Therefore the device deserves its rating of 6 out of 10. I get around 3 to 4 days of battery life, and there is a reason why I get 2 results, but don't worry, I will show you how I arrived to these final conclusions in the video. Anyway, let's look at the key discussion points. Now there is a lot of content to cover in this video. What I normally do is, I do a brief explanation on points 1 and 2, as the bulk of the discussion is primarily on the others because that's where I show my test results. I will also provide timestamps in the description in case you want to skip to the parts that matter to you, especially for those that seen my videos before. Anyway, let's move on to the first discussion point. So this is the testing schedule that I have created when testing smartwatches. If we look at the battery economy test first, the list you see is basically your typical smartwatch use. I always stay within the test process only because I want to compare devices, with some form of consistency. I always begin the test when the device is fully charged at 100%, and then end the test once the device reaches 10% remaining. I then repeat the process 5 times and then provide an average for the final score. As for the second test, GPS battery consumption is more for those that do a lot of GPS activity. The process is pretty straightforward, as I record my GPS activity for exactly 1 hour and then repeat the process 5 times, and take the average. I also do continuous GPS tracking activity as well, but only go as far as 4 hours, just so I can review if the hourly consumption rate is correct. That's the testing process. Let's take a look at the next discussion. In this discussion point, I have 2 rating systems to show you. Only because I do 2 different tests. The first rating you see is for battery economy, and it's a system that I created myself. What I have done is I test a lot of smartwatches, then I categorize the test results to form the 5-star rating system that you see. The rating system also gives you an idea on what's out there in the market. Now if we take a look at the GPS battery consumption rating system. I used the same methodology to construct this rating system as well. It only made sense, rather than reinventing the wheel. As you can see, this rating table gives you an idea what's out there in the market. However, GPS tracking activity is very competitive as well. Anyway, that's how I rate a smartwatch for battery life, so let's review the battery economy test results. So, now you know how I rate a device. The final results now have some context. Overall, the battery economy of the device is very weak. At 23% per day, you are looking at least 4 days battery life tops, which is why I believe the device deserves its rating of 1 star. In terms of what's out there in the market, let's see where the Polar Ignite 3 compares when it comes to battery economy. Now, the list you see are devices that I have physically tested. As you can see, the Polar Ignite 3 sits fairly low on the pecking order. The Galaxy Watch 5 Pro, that's sitting at 9th, is the starting point of a 1-star device. Remember, I rate a device a 1 star if it's 17% or higher. When you review the top device against the Polar Ignite 3, there is quite a large gap, and that device is its competitor as well. I hope that makes sense. Let's now look at the GPS battery consumption test results. When it comes to GPS battery consumption, the Polar Ignite 3 performed very well. At 6% per hour, the device gains a very strong rating, and deserves its final rating of 5 stars for this test. As I mentioned earlier, GPS tracking is very competitive, so let's have a look where the device is ranked in the market. Please note that the rating table are devices that I have physically tested. Although the Polar Ignite 3 gained a very strong rating, there is very healthy competition in the market. All the devices that are ranked from 1 all the way down to 9 are all 5-star devices. Also, a special mention to the devices that are placed 4 and 5 respectively. The Xiaomi S1 Active and the Huawei Watch Fit 2 costs half the price I paid for the Polar Ignite 3. If you are after cheaper alternatives, those two devices are a great option. But the real yardstick to measure the device's full capabilities when it comes to GPS activity is continuous GPS tracking activity. So let's see how the rating table would look like then. Now this table right here will be of interest to those that do GPS activity for long periods of time. It's quite amazing how changing the context of the rating looks from another perspective. At 12 hours of continuous GPS tracking activity, it's a reasonable score. However, when look further up the table, the two cheaper alternatives, Xiaomi S1 Active and the Huawei Watch Fit 2, outperformed the Polar Ignite 3 by at least 30%. Now, before we move on to the next discussion point, I should show you how I calculated the continuous GPS activity. So here is the formula I used to calculate the continuous GPS tracking activity. So I subtract the maximum battery capacity, which is 100%, from the battery economy. Then I divide the difference by the GPS battery consumption rate. You can see the full calculation there. I could have divided 100% by the GPS battery consumption rate, but I did not think that was a realistic number, because you have to allow for everyday smartwatch use before the GPS activity. It may be a crude way of calculating this, but it gives you an idea of what the battery performance is like. Anyway, let's now move on to the final conclusion. You have finally made it to the end of the video. And here is the full test results. I have outlined as to why I think the device can output 3 to 4 days of battery life. Really, the difference is in GPS activity. If you did 1 hour a day of GPS activity consecutively, you will get 3 days. Or more if you decide not to, but at least that way you know what to expect. I think the total battery consumption per day may be the telling factor there. But at the end of the day, it's your choice if the device meets your needs in a smartwatch. But in terms of user experience, it could be better. When I did the battery economy test, I thought the device would get at least a 3 or 4-star rating, however that was not the case. The reason why I was think that, because the Polar Ignite 3 is very heavy in fitness tracking but very light on smart features, which is what the battery economy tests for. But, it is what it is. I can only provide articles based on my test results and provide an unbiased view on the device. The Polar Ignite 3 does have battery saving options when it comes to GPS activity. But I will show this in another video. Essentially, you have to sacrifice continuous GPS tracking to save battery life, in other words GPS accuracy for battery life. But anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have learned a lot about the device's battery life. If you want to know more about the Polar Ignite 3, you can go to my website. I will leave a link in the description. Please like, share and subscribe to the channel for more future videos.